I've been to a Tony Robbins Business Mastery many times over the years. And one of the kind of the exercises that Tony does is, what business are you in? And so for my case, it was, in sports. And then he says, what business are you really in? And for us, it gave it a lot of thought. It was like, all right, well, we're not really, what we're really in the business of creating memories that'll last a lifetime for kids. And in your case, what business, I'm putting you on the spot here, what business do you think you guys are really in?
We're literally helping people live their best life, however that might be. And I know it's in our name and it sounds a little bit trite, but that's really what we're trying to do. And we're focused on the senior space. I helped people live their best lives when I was at GNC, and it's the same baby boomer demographic. They were into nutrition. They wanted to take care of themselves. They were exercising more. And so now I've chased that demographic now into senior care. We took care of them by nutrition back when they were in their 30s and 40s, and now we're taking care of them as their seniors. But it's really to help the senior be safe and live in a comfortable environment, whether that's in their home or in a community. And ideally then, we're providing that service through a bunch of caregivers who, by the way, are the heroes in this business. Going back to COVID, thousands and thousands of caregivers exposing themselves and them, making sure to COVID, making sure that they're helping those seniors. Very difficult time. But that's really the business that we're in. We're helping people. We're solving problems for seniors and helping people live their best life as a result.
Yeah, the caregivers at each one of your franchises are truly, they are the front line. They are the experience, right? People have a good or bad experience based on the frontline people. The same goes for us back in the day running sports leagues. It wasn't the franchisee. It was the actual volunteer coaches or it was the referees. That is who defined whether somebody had a good or bad experience. And caregiving is even more so because it's so precious.
No doubt. And, no doubt. And look, every year, we review the franchisees submit Caregiver of the Year, and we review those submissions, and it's impossible to pick. You get 5 or 10 of the best out of tens of thousands of caregivers we have out there in the country. It's so hard to pick. The stories are so incredible. I'll quote one of our caregivers from Caregiver of the Year 2 years ago. She stood up on stage. She was a 75-year-old woman, and she said, "One of these days when I don't have bills, I'm going to do this work for free." That's how much she loved what she did. And I thought, wow, talk about loving what you do. That's the true test, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And she said it really well.
That's awesome. So I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about your role, because you are in a unique role. Most people we speak to are founders of, one brand. In this case, you are the CEO of a platform of 4 brands. So why don't you share with us a little bit about how that works, that you're in charge of this whole platform, and tell us a little bit about the team and the support that goes with that, because I think that's one of probably the great advantages of Best Life Brands is you have this strong team around it.
Yeah, it is. We have a world-class, talented team. And listen, I'm very fortunate in my career a couple of times now. I've been able to work with founders. I worked with Ray and Eileen Huntington. They're in, they've received all the IFA awards that they've received because of how good they are at what they've done. I'm very fortunate to work with them. It's like working around a Ray Kroc or a Dave Thomas. Same thing here at Best Life Brands, working with the Bon Giovannis, working with the Blues, working with Mark Armstrong from Comfort Care. It's a special privilege to work with a founder. They have this really unique and obviously our relationship's being renewed here, but we met 15 years ago. I always find it a privilege to work with founders because that expertise is completely invaluable. We don't know the business as well as anyone that founded it. And so leveraging that, but then also trying to help that founder accelerate the brand. They want to help more people. They got into this business to expose their brand to as many people as they can. People like me that have been around that, I was around GNC when it grew from 25 franchise stores to 4,000 franchise stores. So that experience helps me, accelerate the brand and put more pins in the map and become more convenient to more people. And so the team is here. And we've centralized some of the resources, marketing, franchise development, legal, HR. Those are centralized services that we can provide to each of the brands. But then the brand has their operations and training specialties. And so the brand president leads operations and leads their training areas. And so they understand the business really, really well. And then, of course, we supplement it with marketing and franchise development and legal and HR as needed in finance to continue to build those brands and make it easy. So we're fortunate. We've got probably the best portfolio of brand presidents. And I just showed our board some of the support we're providing for one of our brands. And one of our board members is around a lot of franchisees and a lot of franchisors in his career. And he found the materials to be world-class. So we're very fortunate to have a really strong team. And we leverage this brand expertise within the brand, but then we leverage the areas that we can do that with shared support services, like I mentioned, marketing and franchise development, and help the brands grow organically and through expansion.
That's great. I want to step back here for a moment. You mentioned about working with founders, early in your career. And what I wanted to share is, as a founder myself, I can tell you that since we have so many people listening that are not only people looking to maybe invest in a franchise, but we've got folks who are emerging franchisors themselves listening to this, want to talk about what it takes to get from that emerging franchise phase to that mature phase. And in my experience as being a founder, I found the only way, or the right way we were able to break through, was for me to hire for my weakness, was to bring in somebody from the outside with the expertise. And I think for you, same thing. You've come in here now, and you're able to kind of blend in everything you've learned over these years working with these brand presidents. Why don't you share your expertise, or share your insight on what you think, what does it take for an emerging franchise to become that mature? How do they get to that elusive 100 franchise units, since so many of them don't get there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's my litmus too. And we're super excited because Blue Moon Estate Sales just opened its 100th location in the last month. We have 130 territories awarded, but we just opened number 102, and that was super exciting, because that's my litmus test too, that number 100. Look, I think it's what you said. I couldn't add to your experience. It's perfect. Hire to your weaknesses, and you have to also kind of let go of the leash a little bit. That was a fun experience for me at Huntington Learning Centers. They were there. They had been in business for 29 years. They started the supplemental education industry. They started it. Sylvan came along after Huntington, but Sylvan grew much faster. And they actually hired me to come in 2005 to help them grow faster. And we literally doubled the size of the business in 20 months. They had 200 locations. We got to 400 in 20 months. You and I met just after that, but they had to let the leash go a little bit. That's hard to see the business grow. And it was a different culture, and it was a different environment inside that business. I had a person come to me in that organization, not the founder, but somebody that worked there from the beginning, and said, I'm arguing with people that I've never argued with before. What is going on here? And I said, it's okay. You're out of your comfort zone. We're just running a little faster. Everybody's a little uncomfortable, but that's what it took to get us to go from 200 locations to 400 locations. And it'll settle down. And it did. People got used to the pace. It just changed a little. And so I think, letting go of that little bit of leash, and look, it's hard. That's your baby. If you're a founder. My wife has her own business, so I understand it really well from that perspective too. But allowing people to come in and help enhance the business. And Frank, I know you probably kissed a bunch of frogs before you found the prince that actually helped grow your business. And so you have to be careful too, because the first person you hire may not be the right one. And you have to measure that fast and understand it quickly and get them out of there if they're not the right one. But once you get it right, then it flies, and you can feel the success. And I'm sure you had that experience.
Well, yeah, I think the mistake that we make as founders is that we fall in love when we interview with somebody that we relate to so well. But the problem is that if they are too much like us, it doesn't solve a problem, because then we're just breathing in the same fumes with one another. And we really need the person that's going to complement us versus the person that's just like us. And part of that issue is, I guess the term is founderitis. Right? Inflammation of the founder that can't get out of their own way.
Well, listen, yes, that happens, but you have to help that person understand the benefits of what you're doing. That's our challenge as the outsider, to come in and help explain that. And look, it gets different. I'll explain it this way, because I've talked to the Bongiovannis about this at Care Patrol for the 3 years I've been here. When the business was theirs before they sold it to Riverside, and then we started to accelerate the growth, they made decisions. They kind of went like this. I say this about Mark Armstrong too. He kind of goes like this, and then he goes. And most of the time as founders, you do it right because you understand the industry so well. But some of the times you miss because you don't have all the data necessary. And so all of a sudden now, as you get into private equity and it's professionally managed, it takes longer to make a decision, and it feels so slow to a founder. Like, what are we doing? I know this is going to work, but people are asking questions, not because they want to make sure the answer is right, because they understand the business. And then you get it about 80% right, and you fly. But it feels so slow to a founder. It's so difficult. But the success rate's higher. As a founder, you go like this, you make a decision, you fly, and then 6 months later, someone comes along with the data and says, boy, that was never going to work. We realize it now because we look at it at the back end and you go, oh, that's okay. We had the other two things that worked really well. And so two things about that, Frank. One, the founder has to adjust because that goes slower and it feels terrible, but then the success rate's higher. But the other side of it is for the team that's been around with the founder, they don't understand data-driven decisions all the time because they weren't around for that. And now it feels slow to them too, but it even feels like, why are we even asking these questions? But it is to get the data to make sure the decision's right. Before it was founder says this is going to work, and we were all pin our ears back and go. And so that's a cultural change that we went through here at Best Life Brands as we've added founder-led businesses. But we know that, and we're able to talk to the team about it because we can anticipate it in the future.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.